Right, gents, just moving on to the cricket. Proteas winning the three-match series. Well, 2 out of 3. I believe if we win the third, we'll go back to number 1 in the ODI rankings. But Rob, 72-run win, but you were saying maybe not all that convincing. Problem in the middle order.
Yeah, a difficult one to judge because you don't want to be too critical when you've given the Black Caps another good stuffing in many respects. I mean, that's it takes some doing to go into their quite tricky, challenging, almost unique conditions. Those sort of slow death pitches that they have in New Zealand. It's not the easiest place to play by all accounts. So South Africa have done the business. You can't complain too much, but there are still certain balance issues in the team, and it was reflected in the team selection. I actually think that Coach Russell Domingo and those around him have actually been quite clever. They're already clearly sort of trying to experiment as much as possible with the World Cup in mind. Obviously they want to keep winning matches, but they're also experimenting. And for this match, they decided to basically shelve a bowler. So Ryan McLaren, who was quite disappointing in the first ODI, although he's normally a pretty consistent performer, was left out. And they effectively they included both Riley Rousseau and David Miller, when initially we'd thought that maybe only one of them would get the nod. So they're both very much specialist batsmen. So the Proteas basically went in with a 5-man bowling attack rather than 6. And what they did for the 6th bowler was use a little bit of AB de Villiers, which was a very novel method, if you like. But what it was also was an acknowledgement of how Jacques Kallis, or should we say Jacques Kallis at his heyday, is missed in the team, because just the balance that he provided, that possibility that he could give you at least 5 overs, and very often in his heyday 10, no longer there. And I think they've been missing sort of a batsman who can bowl a little bit, especially someone who can bowl a little bit of seam, because I think our spin cupboard is already well covered with Imran Tahir and then JP Duminy also bowling a stint. But they went with just 5 specialist bowlers, and it wasn't a bad thing. I think that they need to sort of look and see, what is the right balance of the team. Should we go a little bit batting heavy? Should we go a little bit bowler heavy to compensate? And they've now kind of done both. But yet they've still won 2 matches, so we don't want to be too critical. But there are still issues like sort of bowling at the death. Again, we had a second New Zealand record 10th wicket partnership in 2 games, which is a little bit ominous. Again, you don't want to be too harsh because it was a little bit after the fact. The game was well won, and then sometimes a little bit of sort of silly buggers happens. The tail enders get stuck in, lots of inside edges, lots of heaving, stepping away to leg, and often you can't legislate bowling wise. So you don't want to be too critical. Well done to South Africa for taking a 2-0 lead and possibly looking at a clean sweep.
Garen, New Zealand historically have always, one-day cricket's been their strength. They've been appalling, to put it nicely, and the only guy really showing any resistance is this Luke Ronchi, the wicketkeeper.
Yeah, no, he's been their standout player. They've been, like you say, absolutely awful. And prior to this tournament, we talked them up as perhaps among the favourites for next year's Cricket World Cup. Well, they've obviously got a long way to go because we won easily. I think I actually watched some of last night's game, unbelievably, and the scoreline flattered New Zealand. They should have lost by about 130 runs at least, and we didn't play at our best. But having said that, it's very difficult to put together a perfect ODI when the top order scores runs, the middle order scores runs, the lower order scores runs, because that sort of means you're losing wickets all throughout, and then you bowl well, spin and pace in the power play overs and in the non-power play overs. So I was very impressed by South Africa. I'd be shocked if they lose the third ODI, no matter who they pick. They're obviously missing Wayne Parnell as an option for that left-arm seam and some big hitting lower in the order. So, like Rob says, they're trying to find this to fill the void of Jacques Kallis. They're never ever going to be able to do that. They're never going to find a batsman like him, a bowler like him, a slip fielder like him. So they're doing the best of what they can with what they've got, and I think they've done a good job. I think the fact that AB de Villiers bowled just an indication that they had the game in hand. He was probably getting bored. He probably thought, let me turn my arm over. I picked up a wicket. Then he thought, I can get this tail ender as well for my second wicket. And he did. The commentators were having a little bit of a go at him, saying, there were better bowlers with overs to spare. But in the end, 72 runs is quite a hiding away from home against a team that we've talked up as a contender for the World Cup in New Zealand as well. So very impressed by South Africa. Obviously, they've got bigger matches coming up against Australia, both 2020s and ODIs. So I think that'll be the real test. But can't fault Russell Domingo's team to date. 2 wins out of 2 on the road against a really good ODI team from New Zealand.